I never necessarily have boundaries until I need to have boundaries. So that's something that I'm working on within myself.
Hello, 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 everybody, and welcome to the first episode of Honest Conversations from Our Lenses. My name is Masitseho, and I'm a wife for about 12 years now, I think. A mother of two beautiful children. So my home is filled with a lot of attitude, a lot of sass, a lot of wine, and a lot of back chatting. So that's a lot of fun. I love being outdoors. I love hiking. I love having moments to myself because as a mother, that's not something we get a lot of. Um, and I think I stay true to my name. So loosely translated is Mother of Laughter. So I'm hoping in these conversations we're going to have a lot of laughter.
I do.
And I'm here with my friend Mweketsi.
How's that? Yeah. Thank you, Master, for that. So yes, my name is MK. My real name is actually Mekete, but MK for short is just easier for most people. Yeah, I'm a father of one. I am married to a beautiful, beautiful, lovely woman. I think she's responsible for so much of my growth. I am not simping. It's just the truth. I'm allowed to tell the truth. And yeah, this is such an honor and opportunity to have this platform. I love nature, love writing, love reading. I'm into philosophy. I might also like doing maths to help me stress relieve, but I can't do it on like a school level. I do it like my level. Solving problems always
We,
makes me feel
we
better.
might test that one day,
Yeah,
MK.
but just not scholastically, please. Leave me alone.
Okay, so this is a series of conversations called From Our Lenses. So this is our perspective. Two friends having honest conversation. So we met about a year ago and we were put together on a project to present. Having never met, the first time we actually presented together, we had such wonderful chemistry and we thought, why not? Let's put something on ourselves and have these conversations and discussions, the kind of conversations that are often left on the back burner. And we should be having these conversations in our relationships when we're dating, when we get married, while we're married, with our families. Do we have boundaries? If we do, what do those boundaries look like? What are our expectations? That kind of thing. So, with our friend groups as well. And most importantly, these conversations need to be had within ourselves.
Oh, so that is such a beautiful thing. I think in today's culture, we sort of neglect these conversations because we should be having these conversations, but we don't have them for one or other reason. And what happens is the neglecting of these conversations sometimes also leads to other areas where things just don't go well. So part of what we'll be doing is also having conversations around mental health in its various forms. And our refusal to address these things for the same reasons we don't want to address tough conversations, because these conversations make us uncomfortable. So when we're looking at boundaries, we're looking at interpersonal boundaries and interpersonal boundaries. So these boundaries, as Masatero said earlier on, we're going to be looking at, the boundaries that we need to set within ourselves, engagement, married, whether it's with our family or extended family, within our friendships and within our colleagues, because we know that boundaries regulate how well we experience and show up for life. If we don't have these boundaries within ourselves, it does sort of have like a negative influence on our own self-esteem. Same mostly with your interpersonal boundaries. You need to know yourself. You need to know, who are you? How do you show up in the world? What are the things that
Mm.
you need to set for yourself in order to protect yourself? Because we all have moments of lunacy. And so boundaries for self-improvement will always be such a welcome thing. And I think Masateko, one of the other things that I know we're going to be doing, because what the heart of this is, yes, we need to be having these conversations, but
Mm.
we will also be trying to figure out for yourself and myself, how do we even have these conversations? And even if there's been a situation that has sort of transpired and now we need to figure our way back, how do we backtrack? How do we make something that is unhealthy healthier again? and how do we stay strong in the process for doing that as well?
Absolutely. And I think also just going on boundaries, or just to add to what you're saying, is I think obviously with the past couple of years and COVID and the pandemic, I think our boundaries have become quite blurred, or we've
Yeah.
had to set completely different boundaries to what we would have done before.
Yeah.
So I think part of these conversations is also understanding maybe who we were before COVID and
Yeah.
who we are now, and if the boundaries we set then and the conversations we were having then are, the kind of conversations we would even bother to have now. So I know you were telling us you are married to your very beautiful wife. Are there particular boundaries that you have set, or that you should have set? I don't know which is the right question, that come up that you think people could relate to?
So that's actually a weird one, but such a relevant question. I think initially I might not have necessarily had those boundaries, I'll be honest. So my personality, as we touching on the interpersonal boundaries, I never necessarily have boundaries until I need to have boundaries. So that's something that I'm working on within myself. So I've never really operated with boundaries. I have to admit, I'd be lying to you if I said I always have boundaries. I think I only realize after something happens, you sort of like think of my internal world as a company policy. Sometimes policies are only erected when something goes wrong, not
Absolutely.
necessarily before. So sometimes I like to think of myself as a company. I'm just like, geez, man, you need to stop. Like, can you figure yourself out before something goes wrong? Because the thing is, it's so hard to implement boundaries when a certain precedent has already been set, and you see it a lot in our when something makes you feel uncomfortable, but you don't
Mm,
address it, for instance, because
yeah,
you're sort of afraid of the backlash um, that can happen.
abs-
For instance,
absolutely.
in my marriage and even in my friendship group, sometimes I haven't gone through my boundaries because I don't want someone to be mad at me. I don't want someone to sort of see me as a person that I'm not, because usually boundaries and the implementation of those boundaries, the person that those boundaries are meant for on the other end is not always receptive of that. It happens where a person understands,
100%.
but
Mm.
imagine now you have to put a boundary from someone that has never had to experience that boundary before. It's like, but it's always been like this. Bless you.
Thank
Imagine
you.
having boundaries to someone that has never experienced this, for instance. So let's say now one of our colleagues, she told me a funny story. Actually, it's super funny. So they're from the same culture. So you see, just families being different is just enough. So she in the work and during the week she works really hard and all of that stuff, and then on the weekends she sort of sleeps
Work
in,
hard, play hard.
so on the weekends, so she sort of like sleeps in a bit because she's like, I'm owed this, which is fine. So the one Saturday she wakes up because she normally, yeah, she doesn't sleep fully clothed. I'll leave it there. she'd wake up and then sleeps in a little bit in, and then as she'd walk out, her in-laws were sitting by the yeah, right. Her in-laws were sitting by the sitting area.
Death.
She's there thinking to herself, what the hell? But she can't obviously do it, right? Because she's like, I just need to just backtrack and just like, I don't know how you did that. So it was such a
But did they
conversation
see
with
her?
her and
Because
her
I think
husband.
that's, they
Crazy.
saw her.
Oh, yeah. They were fine with it. Because remember, for them, it's fine. It's whatever, right? And I remember she'd had to have such a conversation with her husband, and the husband was like, I don't understand. This is fine. They're family, right? So we married. And she's like, no, no, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that, man. And so obviously when he had to have the conversation with his family, it made us seem like a prude. Like
Yeah.
why is this a thing?
But also the other thing, MK, is you don't always know that you, like you're saying, company, right? You
Yeah.
don't know that you have to set a boundary until something has happened.
Yes.
But then it kind of, you kind of take a step back and you're like, assess and introspect as to, is it important to have this boundary?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then it's that internal conversation and the back and forth. And I think also, like you were saying with your friends, you also internalize a lot in terms of how is this going to sound? And that I think is the reason sometimes we either take such a long time to set boundaries, and by the time we do, people are so resistant to it because it's like that's not how things have been
Yeah.
with us. So
It's,
boundaries are
it's such an important thing because if you think about it, we hardly ever tell people our boundaries because for us it's common sense. We live with them, right? And then for the next person, we expect them to know because how can you not know that it's just common decency? In this example, like you call me before you come over to my house. It's like if your family has been practicing that for so long, it could seem like common
mm,
sense to you. For
yeah.
them, it was like, but we're family. Why is this such an issue? So one of the conversations I
Guys.
remember I even had with one of my girlfriends, he asked, so he's dating someone and now he asked, but is it really that important to get to know the girl's family? So a couple of guys and I we were like, oh, my dude, you really need to
Yes.
oh, you need to. But it was like, no, it makes no sense because you live with the girl alone. So if you and the girl are good, it shouldn't really matter if the family is not that great. And we're like, nah, my guy. You
Marry into the family.
yeah, like you really need to look at. And the thing is, a lot of people think they're invincible, that they're immune to that, that they know. But as long as my personal friend we live together, it should be okay. There is so much in 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 knowing your partner's family. You learn everything about them. You learn how they
Absolutely.
function, what boundaries that they have, because that obviously
Mm,
influences the culture that person brings into your married life. Because dating someone and being married to someone is not the same thing to me, if you ask me.
no,
Those are
no,
completely different things.
absolutely. And just to go off of that as well. So I've been married, it'll be what, 13 years this year. Um, very close with my family. Not the same with, with my husband. Not that, they fight or bicker or anything like that, but we are like close. Like, if I don't speak or see my parents or my siblings, like at minimum like 2, 3 times a week, something's wrong.
Yeah,
So initially, anyway, when we got married, literally we lived like 5, 10 minutes apart. And you'd hear like odd hours of the day, like distinctly my father's knock. And he'd walk in and my husband would be like, okay. Like the first couple of times, it's like, all right, okay, cool. But now it's an everyday thing.
it,
And then the next day, there's distinctly what the siblings knock, and it's like, oh, wow, this can't be happening every single day. And I was like, what do you mean? We're all good.
mm,
And whenever I want to go to my parents, I'll literally just go and I'll walk in. I still had my set of keys. And then one day he's like, you need to give your parents back their keys. I was like, for what? These are my house keys. I can walk in whenever.
you
So
see,
it's those kind of things that perspective plays such a huge part
yeah,
because for me, that was okay. That was normal that they could come whenever they wanted.
yeah,
Okay, I kind of understand, make a bit of an announcement, but
yeah,
that means literally every single day they would make an announcement that they would come in. But for me, that wasn't an issue. But you've then got to sit down and have the conversation because perspective is huge,
yeah,
right? And you don't want to feel that you're imposing on somebody else's values or comfort. Like if anybody wants to walk around in their birthday suit, they should be able to do that and
yeah,
not feel. So boundaries are so important in relationships and marriages. And I think another big thing is interculturally as
yeah,
well, or because I'm Tswana and my husband is Zulu, and already I think with the older generations, they kind of come in with their own perspective of Tswanas are like this and Zulus are like this.
yeah,
And for me, that made no sense. And I know, thank goodness, my mother-in-law and I are great now. But initially, you could sense there was that expectation that there was going to be this rift and the
yeah,
constant conflict. And I was like, girl, I'm not here for all of that.
yeah,
But then it's about having the conversation, setting the boundaries to say that might have been your experience previously. That's okay. okay, but here, this is how you and I are going to be. So it's the constant conversations, and sometimes it's unnecessary because, like you say, common sense, but common sense is not very common, MK.
That's the truth. That's the truth. And the beautiful thing about what you're saying is, so you're intercultural, I'm interracially. So for me, that's just a different ballgame. And that's why I love
Altogether.
this platform, because I'm just like, there's so many conversations that we're not having. So
Mm.
my wife and I, in it, as a unit, we function quite well, right? But immediately when we need to bring everything else together into the picture, that's when things become a bit hairy, if that makes sense. And that's what I'm saying.
Mm.
There's certain conversations that we need to have had, or we needed to have had, sorry, before we had gotten married. But sometimes you don't know that you need to have those conversations, unfortunately, because, hey man, I'll be honest. So we had all the other conversations like, how much do you
Mm.
earn? What are your ambitions in life? What do you want to do in your 5 to 10 years? If you want to get married, what's your
Mm.
plan for us? How many kids do you
Mm.
want? How do you view money? Are you in debt?
All the normal
All the normal
conversations.
stuff, right? But then we never necessarily had the conversation about like, how will our cultures sort of influence one another? How will our families sort of influence one another? Because like I said, I'm not that, so I'm Sotho, right? But I am not so traditional in the sense, right? And I never really noticed how traditional my parents were until I got married. You know what I mean? And that's when I was like, oh, my parents are actually quite traditional people, which is quite interesting to see. So that caused, how do I say, that caused a bit of a rift. So I was
Mm.
continuously playing goalkeeper between like my wife and my family, because now you have to like manage these two people, because you
Of
just
course.
like, geez, I didn't know it would be this traditional, and I didn't know this how
Mm.
strong he felt, because with them, when they wanted me to do something cultural, it really wasn't really a thing. No, oh sure, whatever.
Yeah.
I was raised up since I was 0 8 years, whatever, doing cultural things. So for me, it never really was like, oh,
It
okay,
was
this
normal.
normal. And then for her,
Mm.
it's sort of like a culture shock. Same with me for her, like being a part of my wife's family's culture, my in-laws' culture, was also a shock. So it took a lot of finessing. And the thing is, those conversations for me, I think, would have been very important. But I don't know if I would have been able to even ask those questions while I was dating.
But what would you have asked though? That's
That's
the
the
other thing.
thing. That's the thing. So that's why it's like, it's good that this platform is sort of like sharing the knowledge of people who've done this, kind of,
Mm.
sort of. So
Mm.
when people ask, you can be like, you know what, this is what you need to look out for, you know? And that's why I
Yeah.
think it's always important for me to also have like, a married couple that has done this, or even have conversations with like between you and I, and between our colleagues, because those conversations that we have, those honest conversations that we have are so refreshing, because you learn so much. You learn that people are kind of the same, just we execute our sameness differently.
I don't think I
So,
could have said it any better. Um, so it would be so awesome just to keep engaging on these kind of conversations.
yeah.
So are there generational habits that need to be broken? Do you need to maybe go to therapy for things that you've endured as a result of the family? We seem to think that interracial relationships seem the most cultural dissonance, which may lead to conflict in a marriage or relationship. But you speak to enough people and pay attention long enough to realize that you could be in the same culture, but sometimes just need family to be different for conflict to arise in a relationship. And I don't believe we've discussed this enough, to be honest.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. So with that also being said, I think one of the things that I know we will also be discussing is mental health, right? And not mental health in the strict sense as a psychiatrist or a therapist would do it with articles and so forth, just from one person to another, and on how
Mm.
we see it impacting the people in our lives the way we see it impacting us. Because I think we saw what COVID essentially did. I mean, it was,
Mm.
geez, it was 2 years of just nothingness, of just
Absolutely.
repetitive sameness and constant fear. I mean, we joke about now with my friends and my wife is that you were so scared you couldn't even go to the garage. That was like, well, where I live, there's like a garage, you can literally walk to it, and you're so frightened, you're just like, I'm just not gonna do it. Because immediately you look out and you just hear one siren, and you see a car with like a blue stick, you're like, yay, going to jail, I'm going to jail. Then you go,
Yeah.
or even like when you go and you finally make it far enough, and you actually like you want to buy the chocolate, whatever. You like, is the cashier gonna call the police on me or something? So it was quite interesting 2 years because, and I think you and I we had this conversation not so long ago where it only felt like the beginning of this year or late last year where I came out a little bit from the COVID bubble, from where I was just like, wait a minute, I actually feel like I'm me. It's like we shaking off the cobwebs of what happened, and that had a lot of impact in our relationships, in the way we see the
Yeah.
world, in our sense of safety. Um, I know for me it was just a lot. So I know you and I are going to be discussing what mental health is from a viewpoint, what it even means. How do you prioritize your own mental health? And do you prioritize other people's mental health over your own? I know I sometimes
Mm.
do that. Um, so when we do that, I know we can sometimes develop all sorts of complexes where you want to be a hero, a victim, or whatever complex that we develop from that. So yeah, I know that's something that you and I are also going to touch on, which I think is quite important to do.
Absolutely. And like you say, yeah, so mental health, I think, is gonna, it's a huge conversation. And I don't think it's a conversation we've had enough or we can ever have enough. Um, and just to go off just in terms of COVID, I know the kind of crazy things we did. I know for myself, I was petrified. I mean, I was working from home. We were all home, but
Yeah,
how I thought I was going to catch the virus was insane. But I would go to the shop for the essentials, obviously. I would have 2 layers of clothes on to go to the shop, come back, take off the one layer outside before coming into the house. When I get into the house, I'd jump into the shower or to the bath. But just like that was at the beginning of COVID. But the more you learn about things, and the reason I'm actually just saying the story is, when we are just so hyper focused and hypersensitive about things, we don't know how to cope. And part of these conversations is us teaching each other, learning from each other in terms of how am I coping?
mm,
My story might resonate with somebody else. Your story might resonate, but
mm,
let's let's laugh at ourselves one and
yeah,
let's have these conversations because it's important. But I think, as much as possible, whatever people feel are topical conversations to have, let us know. What do you want to talk about? What are some of the things or the honest conversations that you want to have or that you've wanted to have with people and that are just not being had?
yeah,
Let us know because we want to make sure that the right conversations, the right connections, the right whatever it is happening. Let's speak more. Let's be cognizant of the fact that I might not know, what's right. I know I might know what's right for me, but I might gain so much knowledge from you, MK, and other people out there. So I'm so excited about, the start of this, and I can't wait to see where it goes.
yeah. And I think it's so important. I mean, the this is not meant to be like a heavy thing, obviously. I think it's just people realizing that we just need to help each other figure out how life basically works. That's all. No one person has the answer. We all believe that each person has the answer for themselves. It's just in how do you apply that answer for yourself into your life. And yeah, whatever conversations that we're gonna have going forward, I believe for me, I know you and I are gonna learn out from them because we always do. And it's just a
Absolutely,
matter of,
absolutely.
yeah, whatever conversation you feel like we're not having, let's have it. And then you guys will
Yeah,
just let us know what you'd like us to basically touch on. But for we just learned that it's just easier to do life with someone. Not a heavy revy. We
absolutely.
just genuinely need a different perspective. And we hope that you enjoy seeing things from our lenses.
Absolutely. So thank you. So yeah, we definitely are excited to continue to have these conversations.
Also, see you guys. Bye.
Bye.